So today I want to go over how to simplify square roots. You might have seen this in Algebra 1, but they might have showed you a different way, okay? What's important is that you know your perfect squares. So I got a list of perfect squares over here. These are perfect squares, okay? So like for example, let's say you're taking the square root of 36. Well, 36 is a perfect square. The reason it's a perfect square is because 6 times 6, so 6 squared is 36. So the square root of 36 would be just 6. If I took the square root of 256, well, look at the list. Is 256 on the list? Yes. What's the square root of 256? 16. All right, so it's important that you know your perfect squares. So I suggest that you maybe take a screenshot of this list here so you can use it. All right, so we want to simplify each expression and leave it in radical form. Or you want to leave it so it has a square root in its answer if it's not a perfect square. So let's simplify this first one. The square root of 50. So my first step is to look at my list. Is 50 a perfect square? So is 50 on this list over here? It's not. So now what you want to do is you want to find the biggest perfect square that divides into 50. So the biggest number from this list that goes into 50. Well, that number is 25. So what you can do is you can write this as the square root of 25 times the square root of 2. Because 25 times 2 is 50. What is the square root of 25? 5. So the square root of 50 reduces down to 5 square root of 2, or 5 radical 2. That's your final answer. That's simplified. The reason it's simplified is because the number that's under the radical doesn't have a perfect square that divides into it other than 1. 1 goes into everything, so that doesn't count. So you always want to make sure the number under your radical doesn't have a number from this list that divides into it. If it does, you can reduce it. If it doesn't, it's reduced. All right, so let's try 147. Is 147 on my list? It's not. Okay. What divides into 147? Well, I don't know the factors in 147. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start dividing 147 by some numbers. I'm always going to start with 2. So let's see what 147 divided by 2 is. So just get out a calculator. 147 divided by 2 is 73.5. Is 73.5 a perfect square? No. So let's take 147 and now divide it by 3. 147 divided by 3 is 49. Is 49 a perfect square? Yes. So the biggest perfect square that divides into 147 is 49. So I can break the square root of 147 down to the square root of 49 times the square root of 3. 49 times 3 is 147. And then what's the square root of 49? 7. So my answer is 7 square root of 3, or 7 radical 3. Okay? All right, let's try C. Hopefully you're getting how to do these now. 200. Is 200 on my list? Is 200 a perfect square? It's not. So let's find a perfect square that divides into it. Well, 100 divides into it. 25 divides into it. 4 divides into it. Okay? So 200 has 3 perfect squares that divides into it. So if it has more than one perfect square that goes into it, you always want to choose the biggest one. We always want the biggest perfect square that divides into it. So I'm gonna use 100. So I'm gonna break this down to the square root of 100 times the square root of 2. Square root of 100 is 10, so my answer is 10 radical 2, or 10 the square root of 2. 98. The biggest perfect square that goes in 98, what is it? 49 goes into 98 twice. 49 times 2 is 98. The square root of 49 is 7, so my simplified answer is 7 square root of 2. So that's how you simplify radicals, okay?